What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Eric Wilson. Today, joined by my co-host, Collin. Today, we're going to be doing a little bit of a prediction and expectations for the upcoming year. Happy New Year to everyone watching. It is now 2024. Really proud of everything the Rangers did in 2023, everything we accomplished over here at Fireside Rangers. So thank you to all the viewers, and I hope you all have a great new year. Speaking of the New York Rangers, though, they ended off 2023 perfectly. I was at that game in Tampa. Felt like MSG South right there. I'm telling you, there was more Rangers fans than there were Lightning fans in that building. Panarin hat-trick, incredible. All the Lightning fans left, and I was making fun of them. So just know that I did a good job on the road front there. But we'll be doing a little bit of a deep dive into what we expect from this upcoming year, the remainder of the season, and maybe even what happens in the offseason once the season concludes, depending on how this season ends. But before we get into that, make sure you guys like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss notification. If you're watching us on Apple or Spotify, be sure to give us a 5-star review. Leave your thoughts on the topic down in the comment section below. And lastly, be sure to follow all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers on both Instagram and X. But before we really get into it, Collin, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here, excited to be back in action. I know we took a little bit of a hiatus, or at least I did, with all my traveling for the Christmas festivities and whatnot in the new year. But I'm excited to see what the Rangers have in store for us for the rest of this year. I know watching that Lightning game, it fired me up. It was a nice way to end the year, and I'm looking forward to what's coming next.
Of course, and as of today, because I think this is going to be uploaded tomorrow after tonight's game against Carolina, it is January 2nd. At this point, heading into tonight's games, the Rangers are currently the #1 team in the NHL. They have the best odds to win the Stanley Cup, according to the NHL Instagram that I'm looking at right here. But it's pretty incredible. The Rangers being the #1 team in the league heading into the new year for the first time since the 1993-94 season in which they won the Stanley Cup. So we talk about expectations, right? They got to be set pretty dang high heading into this year. The Rangers have been a formidable force through pretty much every game. We know earlier in the season they went through a little bit of a slump, but I would rather have that happened at the beginning of the season when it did than maybe right now or later as we gear closer to playoffs. So as for expectations, Collin, you look back at the slump, the defense was really the problem. The goaltending, someone could argue that was a little mediocre from Shesterkin, but everyone knew that he would bounce back. None of us here at FSR were too concerned about it like a lot of people on social media were, but the defense, the goaltending, even the offense, how did the Rangers live up to these high expectations, and how do they continue to play like they have been as of late?
If looking back on the year, like, and how they played, if I had to give grades out, I'd probably give the goalies like an A- to B+. I'd give the offense definitely like an A to an A+. They've been electric all year. And I think Laviolette's done a lot with the forwards, and the combinations that he's put out there have looked good. And when they haven't, he's been able to shift it and get some production. So that's been good to see. The defense, I'd probably give like a B-. They're good. They played well at points, but I also think they've been a big culprit in some of our losses. I know in that game against Florida, they were kind of lackluster and they were getting walked left and right. I don't think any of those goals were really solely on Jonathan Quick. I think he played outstanding. And I think it's the same thing goes for that Edmonton game. If we're going to be nitpicky, which at this point in the season, if we're talking about being the Cup favorite, you got to nitpick. You got to make sure that everything is buckled down and ready to go. So, I like what I'm seeing from the Rangers. I think that it is exciting to see them in a similar spot where they were in 93, 94, because we all know what happened that year. So, it gets the blood pumping. I'm excited to see what's coming next. I'm hoping that they can keep it up going forward.
And I agree. As a Rangers fan for the last decade and a half, I guess, maybe a little something, give or take a few years there. I've seen my ups and downs with the Rangers. I've seen them make it to a Cup final. I've seen them come very close to making it to more finals, and I've seen them miss the playoffs a few years. But I can confidently say this is the most confident that I've ever been in a Rangers team. Even in 2014 when they made it to the finals against LA, obviously I loved that team and it was a phenomenal team, but there's just something about this year that it just feels different, especially when you look at the last few years. Igor definitely carried the Rangers a decent amount 2 years ago when we made it to that conference final against Tampa. Without Igor, we weren't making it that far. And then last season against the Devils that we were eliminated in, I think that was another regular season carried by Igor. And then as soon as the stars of the team did not show up, the Rangers just imploded upon themselves. But this season's different because it's not that Igor's playing bad. Igor's playing phenomenal, but it doesn't feel like he's stealing the Rangers games anymore. It seems like he's able to have an off game and the defense and the offense will still come through. And there's not like one or two players that are just inflating the rest of the team. Everyone's contributing and on like a perfect level. Most of it thanks to new head coach Peter Laviolette. He's not even new anymore at this point. He's got about 35 or 38, however many games the Rangers have played under his belt in New York, and everything's been working perfectly. So like I said, the defense does need to be a little better, more consistent. I think that game against Florida that you mentioned, as much as I love him, Keandre Miller definitely was probably the worst defensive performance I've seen from him so far this season. But they got right back to it against Tampa, bounced back the next day. And so I'm confident heading into the new year, but kind of looking a little forward into the future. Now that it's 2024 officially, it's January. The trade deadline, which you've discussed a little bit, we're at the point where we actually have to start taking a deep dive into it, make some predictions on what the Rangers are going to do. It's not really just like let's touch upon the future right now. It's the trade deadline's like the first or second week of March. The Rangers need to start figuring out who they're going to want to go for, who they're willing to give up and everything. And as we all know, the Rangers are going to be buyers at the deadline. They're going to be looking to boost that lineup they have going right now. And I'm having a hard time figuring out exactly what they're going to target first because, we have the right wing that with Kakko injured, there's kind of a little bit of a hole there. But Blake Wheeler has stepped up his game recently. We hated on him a lot. Collin, you might have been right. Wheeler has been solid, but I think me and Tony did an episode maybe like a week or two ago discussing if Blake Wheeler was a long-term solution. And I think, yes, he would be suitable to remain as the first line, but there's definitely room for improvement, especially as a cup contender looking to make strides in the playoffs. So I still think the right wing definitely needs some work, but now there's Philip Hedl again. Trocheck, since Hedl was injured, stepped up into the 2C, played phenomenally, but then Nick Bonino on third line as the center, again, he's been solid, but there's definitely room for improvement there. So there's kind of two positions the Rangers need to go out for, and they don't really have money to do both. So you're going to have to assume that at this season's trade deadline, the Rangers are going to go for one of them, another offensive player, hopefully in the top 6 if they can get on that right wing. Because Philip Hedl, who knows when he's going to come back. The most recent update we heard about him is that he's going back to Czechia. And just for the next phase of his recovery, Laviolette continues to be very vague about Cabo Kakko, just that he's making strides, he's improving, he's skating on his own. No timetable, though. And, we can't speculate on it. We're not doctors. We don't know. But who knows what the Rangers are going to do? I don't know. I think they should go for a right wing first and then a center. But that's just my opinion. I'm curious to know what you think the Rangers might do this year at the trade deadline.
I'll say a name that has just recently come up, at least on my radar, because I thought he had a higher price point, is a guy that could possibly fill both of those needs in Elias Lindholm, currently with the Calgary Flames on the last year of his deal, coming in, I believe, is a 4.625, something around that range, 4.5, but an easily movable deal. I think that the Rangers kind of have to make a decision on Kakko and Hedl as to whether they're coming back or not, because that gives you the relief if necessary. But if you think that they're going to come back this season and you want to plug and play them, like if you want them to come back and be part of the active roster, then you have to look at moving a guy like Barclay Goodrow, which I guess would in turn hurt your center depth. So but you could possibly be getting Hedl back and it would help the center depth. For me, I'm looking to get a guy like Elias Lindholm. I think you're right. I like Wheeler. I've been saying it. I've been defending him for a while, and now I'm finally singing the praises of him. He's been playing good. This last 10 games, he's been a force. He's getting, I think he has 10 of his 15 points in the last 10 games. And he's been driving offense. He has a couple nice goals. So, it's good to see him finally get going and gathering that chemistry with Kreider and Zibanejad as they heat up and start to help out that second line. But I think that, in my opinion, other than the right wing, I'm not even too worried about center. I think Bonino's good. I think Goudreau's good. Obviously, if you can move him and get somebody, or if Hedl comes back, I'm not opposed to that. But for me, I'm personally looking to maybe add another defenseman. I know we've been talking about how shaky the defense has been consistently, but then we don't talk about changing it at all. So for me, I'm talking about possibly giving Schneider the rest of the year off and getting somebody who's maybe a little bit more consistent. I think he's been pretty rough. He has his moments here and there, these bright spots, but he's been really raw this year. And I get it. He's still very young, and I'm not quitting on him entirely at all. I hope he's a Ranger for a long time to come. They're calling him Baby Trouba, the way that he's leveling people. And I think that there is some of that to his game. But I think that what he brings to the table right now isn't necessarily what the Rangers are looking for. I think they're looking for a little bit more polish. And I think that if the Rangers are looking to button up, or tie everything nicely with a bow to wrap the year up and go into the playoffs, looking as elite as possible, I think that you definitely have to plug out that right wing. And I think that you need to consider adding a defenseman who's a little bit more solid in his own zone.
Yeah, that's fair, because you do make a valid point. We talk about the defense and how shaky it is, but we never address fixing it. But it's just one of those things that you add it onto the list, right wing, center, defense. We don't have enough money to fix all of those problems, which is why I think the Rangers do need to start to address these issues now, kind of make that decision on Hedl and Kakko. Are they coming back? Are they not? Because if not, they got a lot of work to do to clear some cap and get some players on there. Because you look at it at this point of the season, there's no more room for error. The Rangers had their slump earlier. Thank goodness that it was earlier, because right now you can't be having like a crisis Avengers level threat on your hands with the team. You're trying to just have a very solid team and just start to nitpick. Like we said earlier, just pick out this one little spot that might not be as perfect as it could be, and then just get someone a little slightly better. I feel like last season at this point, when all the Kane and Tarasenko rumors were happening, if the Rangers were true Stanley Cup contenders last year, they shouldn't have needed to go out and get two superstars like that. Like right now, I don't think we need Patrick Kane or Vladimir Tarasenko. Would I love to have them? Yeah, but it's not like our season's on the line because of it. I think that the Rangers do have the potential to be Stanley Cup contenders as it is right now. But I do want to transition into that, because you look at predictions, expectations for 2024, the 2024 Stanley Cup playoffs. I know as of earlier today, according to Money Puck, the Rangers had the highest odds in the league to make the Stanley Cup playoffs. There's like 98.8% chance of them making it. So, knock on wood, obviously. But, the Rangers should, in theory, make the playoffs. Now, it's kind of hard to tell because we don't know what the team's going to look like, as we said earlier, with injuries, with any possible trades. But are you in on it? Do you think the Rangers are like legitimate Stanley Cup contenders? I know we've discussed it before, but now that we're like close to halfway, are we, or are we just like the same story again? We're just first round exit. Because I'm like I said at the very beginning, I am the most confident out of any year in recent years in this team.
I'll say, looking at this team as comparatively speaking to last year, I think that there's a huge difference. I think that the Rangers just look a lot more competent. Obviously, they've had the star goaltending for quite some time now, but this team has the defensive forwards that are needed to help out, what might not be the strongest D corps in the league, but, they're able to, they're back checking, and they have the superstars now. Panarin is playing at the highest level we've seen him played, and Meek is getting going. Kreider, he looks like he's on pace to score a solid number of goals again this year. And then you're getting the production from the bottom six, which is huge. That's one of the biggest things. On top of them being really good and defensively conscious, they're also chipping in. I mean, you're looking at the game the other day. We're playing the Panthers. We're down 2-0, and all of a sudden, Will Cooley comes in and ties that thing up after a nice play from Panarin and Lafreniere, obviously. But like getting those contributions from guys like Cooley, from guys like VC, from guys like Benino, and occasionally Pitlick and Goudreau, all those guys chipping in, even if it's not, a goal every night, if it's a secondary assist, it still counts. It's still important. And, it's also what they're doing off of the score sheet. It's their defensive metrics. It's their block shots. Benino, I believe, is still one of the leaders in forwards and block shots, and Trouba is one of the defensive leaders in block shots. And, it's all about trying to work together. As you look at the team, and it's like this machine, and every player is a key cog. And if somebody's messed up, or if there's a chink in the armor, it's not going to operate as well as it can be. And I think that you're watching the Rangers it's just so smooth in the wins. You look at that game against the Lightning, and there was obviously the power play goal was tough, but those are going to happen. You're not going to shut out every team. I think that the team just looked perfect. I think that there was very few scoring chances against on a team that's loaded with superstars. whether it's Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, Kucherov, I could go on, and you're able to hold them to one goal. I think that's super impressive. I think that the Rangers are also doing a very good job at bouncing back after losses. I don't think they have consecutive losses yet. I could be wrong.
They did it once, back-to-back losses. That's it, though.
But that's crazy. Like, they're very good at bouncing back, and that bodes well. Should we get into the playoffs? I'm not giving any guarantees like some people I know. But
dude, that's what I broke. I gotta address this really quick. I know that's been like the joke of this season is that I'm the biggest jinx in the world. But Collin, you can confirm this. Before that game against Tampa, I put on social media Panarin hat trick inbound. What did he do that night?
He scored a hat trick. He did. I can confirm he did. Eric was probably more hyped than anybody because he sent it in the chat and he was like, I called it. The curse is broken.
I did break the curse there. But so yeah, the Rangers are a great team. We all know that. Legitimate Stanley Cup contenders. Just the last thing that I want to talk about here, just because 2024 is not only the remainder of this season, it's going to be the off season started next year. We're not even going to get into next season, but I'm looking it up right now. And man, after this season ends, the Rangers have a lot of free agents. It's like a ridiculous amount of free agents. I'm just going to go through the list here. Ryan Lindgren, Blake Wheeler, Kaapo Kakko, Brennan Othmann, Braden Schneider, Bobby Trevino, Carl Henriksen, Olaf Lindbaum, Dylan Garand, Matt Robertson, Matt Rempe, Eric Gustafson, Jonathan Quick, Nick Bonino, Tyler Pitlick, Brandon Scanlon, Mac Hollowell, Nicholas Brouillard. I'm definitely butchering these prospects' names, but Connor Mackey, Turner Elson, Johnny Brodzinski, and Louis Domingue. So, like a lot of minor guys there, but some big names like Lindgren, even Wheeler, Kakko, Othmann, Schneider, Garand, Gustafson, Quick, Bonino, Pitlick. Oh, that was just forwards. Oh no, there's more. That was it. But that's a lot, and I think the Rangers have a lot of work to do this offseason. I don't know how Drury's going to pull it off. I thought that by bringing up the free agents, it would be easier to have like a simple like yes or no. Could Rangers re-sign these guys? But the list of names just goes on, and they're definitely not all staying. I think the ones that you have to re-sign are Ryan Lindgren, Brennan Othmann, and after that, anyone can get it. Even Kaapo Kakko, he could get it.
Well, Othmann's coming off his ELC, so he'll probably get a bridge deal. He hasn't even seen any NHL action, so the chances of him, he'll probably get like a two-way deal, something like that, just to give him time to develop, like we have spoken about before. Luckily for the first time in a long time, the cap is supposed to take a considerable jump this offseason. I know COVID kind of slowed everything down, and then they were paying back the escrow and things like that. So I believe it's supposed to go up by $4 million, which is like another player. In some cases, I mean, you look at a guy like Lindholm; he's making 4 point something. Duclair's making 3.
Second line player. You can get
in some cases it can be, and it could be like as long as you don't give it all to a guy like Barclay Goodrow, it could be Tyler Pitlick, Jimmy VC. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But it could be like Bonino, a quick Bonino, Wheeler, and VC are all signed for $4 million total, almost maybe a little bit more, but like. Those are 4 solid contributors. So I think that he has his work cut out for him for sure. And, I think that Quick will probably leave just the way that he's playing. I don't know that we'll be able to retain him. Maybe he takes a hometown discount, growing up a Rangers fan. And Bonino's towards the end of his career. He might not be looking for money. He might just be looking for cups. So maybe he comes back, after we win this one to run it back. Who knows? Like, there's a lot of things that have to go down. And no one knows who's going to be willing to take a discount yet and who's going to need or demand more money. I think Lindgren's still an RFA.
I believe so.
So is Kakko. They brought, you can always take it to arbitration, things like that. So, Drury definitely has his work cut out for him. But
Lindgren, Kakko, and Othmann and Schneider are all RFAs.
Yeah, like that's as much as he has his work cut out for him. There's also a lot of things that should help him. Arbitration being one of them. Schneider shouldn't be able to command too much money. Coming off an entry-level deal. He'll probably get a cheap bridge. Kakko, if he wants to stay in the league, he'll probably take a cheap bridge because he hasn't done anything really in his career so far. I know he had like a bit of a breakout last year, but now he's been missing for most of this year. And even in the time that he was missing, Brodzinski surpassed him in points in a shorter span. I don't think he has much bargaining room there. Lindgren is probably going to want some money I think if you look at the record with and without him, that in itself says that we need to keep him. And obviously you have those depth guys, but you can go and get other depth guys, hopefully. I don't know if they'll be as productive on the dot as Benino is and things like that, but there's also the possibility of moving guys. Like I've been begging Dre to move Goudreau. I'm sure he'll figure it out. He's a wizard with it. The unfortunate part of it is it's a business, so like people come and go, and obviously we come attached to these guys like Quick or like I've come to be attached to Wheeler. Since he got here, I've wanted him to do well, and I think he's doing well now. So I'm not saying go and give him the world, but if he wants to come back on another cheap deal.
Let's not forget about the return of the GOAT of Sellies, Artem Anisimov, PTO at the Hartford Wolfpack signed today.
That's true. I did forget about that, but that's another guy who could be a depth piece down the line. So it's things like that. The unfortunate part of it, as I was saying before, is it is a business, but you come to love these players, and it's sad to see them go. But you got to remember that, a lot of these guys are putting their bodies on the line. They want to get paid. So if they can go and get their bags elsewhere, I support it. Obviously, I want them to succeed just as much as I want the Rangers to succeed.
Yeah, but I agree with everything you said there. I think that about wraps up our predictions and expectations for the remainder of this season and the off season so far. But we'll have a deeper dive into all that little off-season stuff when this season actually comes to an end. We have a lot of work to do, and we're excited to be covering the remainder of this season all the way through the rest of the regular season and the playoffs, and hopefully it'll end with the Rangers Stanley Cup championship. But we're going to knock on wood again, just in case the Panarin hat trick didn't actually end the curse. But thank you to everyone for watching. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss a notification. If you're watching us on Apple or Spotify, be sure to give us a 5-star review. Leave your thoughts on your predictions and expectations for the Rangers heading into the 2024 calendar year down in the comment section below. And lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers on both Instagram and X. Once again, thank you all for watching. Happy 2024. Have a great year, everyone. And we'll be back tomorrow with more daily Rangers content. Have a good one, and let's go
Rangers.